Hi, my name is John Roberts, and without Jesus Christ, I would be either dead or in jail.
Where would I be without your love? Where would I be without your grace? Father in heaven above, all of my sins you erased. You saved me from a life of misery and rewrote my history. This is my story, and to you be the honor and glory, y'all. Resurrected, born again, no longer a slave of this world I'm living in. Broke the chains that held me down, I've been set free, so let me testify.
We are on a flat roof, and the reason for that is this is where I spend the other 50% of my life, I guess. It's been doing it the last 13 years, and it's commercial flat roofing. Being on a roof is actually a really good place to stop and reflect once you pause and you look around. I mean, just by looking around, I mean, you can enjoy creation a lot more than if you're just walking around on the ground. So I would have been, 10 years old here. Can't remember what I did, but I was a pretty rambunctious child. I was literally locked in my tent for days. And then I remember thinking it was my birthday and I'm still locked in my tent. Everyone's out, it's camping, everyone's out having fun and splashing and swimming. And here I am, a 10-year-old, just kind of stuck in my tent and not allowed to do anything or go anywhere. And I remember thinking, I was laying there, I'm like, it's my birthday today. Like, nobody's doing anything for it and no one cares, right? I would tell this young man that just to hang on a little bit longer. God's gonna come to the rescue. He's gonna come here, he's gonna save you, he's gonna help you. And just lay in that tent all by yourself and smile, buddy, because it's all coming to an end soon.
John, you always believed that your story was going to be lived out in a prison cell because you saw yourself as an angry, confused, anxious and depressed young man. But today, that story is different. And you can talk about it for the very first time because your story began at home. It's a place where we hope to be safe, but your upbringing was very traumatic. What do you remember as a young boy growing up?
I remember a lot of things I try not to remember. I remember there being a lot of abuse. I remember a lot of no one being around. I remember just a lot of negative feelings, negative emotions.
What about mom and dad? What were they like?
Dad was non-existent. He wasn't around for my birth. He didn't have a hand in anything. But I had, I guess, a stepdad, you would say, that was in the picture, who was a pretty off the hinge person. And then I had a mother who was just incapable of raising children. She just didn't have the capabilities, I guess, or not really still sure how to put that, but very unattentive and non-existent, and always seemed to put us, I had a little brother as well, always seemed to put us in pretty unsafe situations with unsafe people that ultimately led to more abuse and led to things that kids should never really go through.
Now, as a result of that, childcare had to get involved and you were moved into a foster home. Was that any better?
I don't mean to laugh, but I can look back now with a bit of a sense of humor, and the answer is no. I mean, the ministry pulled my brother and I out of care from our mother, putting us into a home that was absolutely no better. There was a lot of physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. I mean, it was, thinking back now, it was extreme turmoil. So to have originally your life with your mother be pretty mixed up, to then being put into a foster home that is completely mixed up, That was the first quarter of my life that was just absolute turmoil. So, you know, thinking back again, I mean, the manipulation, I can think of certain circumstances of, you know, I'd be getting smacked around one day, and then the next day they're taking me to McDonald's, and I get to sit in the front seat as a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old, and I'm happy. And then later that day, a social worker would come for a home visit and ask me, John, how you doing? And the answer was, I'm great. I got my ice cream. I was sitting in the front seat. I mean, life's good. And then once they left, I mean, they came around once a year, maybe once every 6 months, I can't remember, but, you know, manipulation, and never ever abused in front of other people, and never obviously bruises on your face or things of that nature. It was always one-on-one, alone in a room, getting what they felt I deserved.
Now, these foster parents that you're talking about, they went to church. How did that make you think about church at that time?
I wanted nothing to do with church. How could we go to church on Sunday, praise the good Lord, and just to come home to, I love using that word, turmoil, like to go back to an absolute maddening environment where there's all these negative things happening, but there we were an hour ago worshiping Jesus. I think that this to me didn't make any sense. It left resentment. It left me confused. It really just turned me away, plain and simple, and for good reason. I mean, you're young.
So your thought of God wasn't good?
No, it was far from good. It was, if this is your God, I don't want your God.
At the age of 12, for the first time, you actually stood up to the abuse that you were taking. And the reason you did so is because you thought that this God that you really had no use for spoke to you. Can you explain?
12 years old, never forget that day. That was the day when I ran. I was told to run. My whole life I've cowered. I cowered from all the punishment, from all the abuse, everything. It was always curl up in a fetal position, just like a bear's attacking you. That's all I would ever do. I never fought back, not once. And at the ripe age of 12, they finally came at me in the driveway, and they had their hand up, and they were coming for me, and just run. Something I'd never run before, and there I was. And I was a fast kid, and I was gone. I ran up that road to the closest safe spot that I knew of, and it was a friend's house. I go running up, and I can hear tires screeching behind me. They're coming. They're angry. They're really angry. This is gonna be the beating for the books. And I'm as fast as I can go. And I get to the front door, and I can just still hear them. I'm banging on the door, and finally the door opens, and I go right in, and I hug. It was my friend's mom, and I'm just holding her, and I'm not going back. And then there they come in the driveway, and they're ready for me, and they're trying to reach for me and grab me to the door. I'm in hysterics. I'm crying. I can't keep it together. And my friend's mom, God bless her soul, she's just down there. She's like, okay, well, I don't know what's going on here, but he doesn't want to go home with you, so I'm not sending him with you. I'm just going to call the police. So the police show up, and then long story short, they were parked in front of the home, the foster home, and he said, well, we're going to wait here till you go home. And I said, I'm not going back in that home. That's not home. And I said, we'll be sitting here a long time. So then social workers got involved. They pulled me out of there, put me into a temporary home, and then another temporary home. And then I landed at my final forever home, I guess you could say. You know, I can still think back pretty vividly to that day, and just the emotions and turmoil and the negative emotions and you know, it's even hard to revisit it though sometimes. I mean, really just, it was such a, I keep using the word paramount because I mean, I'm trying to think of a bigger word, but it was such a paramount day where I'm so grateful that it did happen, and I'm so grateful there was help and there was support, and where I finally did end up. I mean, that was the beginning of my life, is how I look at it at that point.
So this new home, this final home, was different. How was it different to you?
They were real Christians. Like, at first, I didn't realize it. I didn't know what a real Christian was, but I mean, I landed there and the door opened, and you know, when you open the door, you can get a vibe, a sense of vibe. It was relaxed, it was warm, it was welcoming. So imagine, to my relief, to realize, hey, they're not hitting me. They're nice, they're feeding me, things are, you know. You know, my godly parents, they, you know, start to instill patience, and they start to instill some self-discipline, and, you know, now the walls go up, and then, you know, my wife and my children now are 100% the roof. I mean, they're holding us this whole thing together for me, and now it's not only is it a team, but it's a family. So it's certainly ironic to have my career and to spend a lot of my time on a roof when that was the furthest thing that I could ever imagine being, especially when you just stand on a new, fresh foundation, but absolutely nothing's built. So again, here we stand, it's built, we're ready to go, and life couldn't get too much better.
Even though you're in this incredible environment of faith, you say they're a Christian family, and light, as Christians do say, strangely enough, your world becomes darker. So help me understand that.
So my world starting my life was others inflicting onto me. And then once I got into my forever home, it was me inflicting pain on me. I have no qualities, like, at that point that I knew about. I mean, I was pretty mixed up, so naturally you run in those circles. So you run with the people that are searching for their purpose as well, I guess, also, right? So, you know, there were times when, you know, it started with some drinking and smoking pot, and then you're kind of skipping school because that's not important, and then you're kind of running around town at all hours of the night doing dumb things, and then the heavy drugs come out, and you find yourself in some pretty miserable places. You know, I've experienced things to, you know, a drug overdose to all of a sudden being in a home that's notoriously known for being the type of place it is, a drug house. And I found myself there one night, and I remember just looking around and like, this, you know, as a 17-year-old kid, thinking something's wrong here. But the one thing that stuck with me is I always said, oh, my gut always told me when something felt wrong. Again, I believe that was God. And there's no such thing as coincidences in my life anymore. But something was always telling John, no, this is not for you. This is not where you belong. You do not want to be here. And I had that voice often.
Now, just as an aside, and moving forward a bit, you're in your early 20s. You're living with your girlfriend, who now has become your wife today. But at that time, you begin to reflect on a friend that you had and about his life. Why were you reflecting about him?
So through all this madness, I made what I felt were a few good friendships, in particular one fella, and we were best friends. We were inseparable. We did a lot of productive things together, but we did a lot of unproductive things together. And looking back now, when we were both doing the unproductive type stuff, drugs and partying and not accomplishing anything, I started to get away from it, but he just continued on that same path. And he didn't deviate from that path one iota. So much so where, you know, we eventually lose contact. We're not talking so much anymore because, again, I'm not associating myself with that world and that realm anymore. And just because I need to do better. And now with him, I mean, it migrated from smoking his first joint together at 13 years old to now, you know, they're shooting fentanyl. They're living on Hastings Street in Vancouver. that, and I look at that, and that would have been my destiny.
Music began to soften your heart. What music? How did it touch you?
So it would have been a year and a half or so ago, I was sent to go do a job in Saskatchewan. And I often work alone, so it's just me, my music, and whatever. It's a long drive. And I remember I have the YouTube app, and it plays kind of recommended songs directed at what you have previously listened to. And for some reason I'm driving, and then all of a sudden a near-death experience comes on. I thought that was pretty strange. I maybe had watched one prior a while ago, but it came on, and I have a 12-hour drive. I'm like, let's listen to it. It's an hour and a half. Well, it's quite a popular story, and I can tell you that for some reason that story just spoke to me. And it started to make sense of my life a little bit, just listening to his story. And then I land in Saskatchewan. I'm there for 2 nights, and my wife and I still call it my spiritual retreat. I mean, that was the first time in my life where I'm all of a sudden praying. I don't know why, but I need to pray. I need to talk to God. I need to do something. Like, I just feel this filling up. And there I am, this big tough guy, 6'3", 300 pounds, roofer, been through hell and back. You can't faze me. And I can't stop crying. I can't. I'm at the foot of the bed in this hotel room, trying to get my stuff together here, and I can't keep the emotions in. I'm continuing to listen to more stories, then some gospel music plays, and then I'm reflecting on my life, and everything just kind of starts to make sense.
So after this, your wife and you decide to find a church. You find a church, you go to church, and I guess you make the commitment that if you're going to do this, you're going to be all in. And you decide to go all in, but there needed to be some kind of clarification about that for you. And once that clarification was made, everything changed. But tell me about the clarification. And I think it was a friend who met you after a service in the foyer of the church.
A friend of mine that I met at church, and we were talking, and we get along pretty well. And he said, I kind of shared a little bit of this experience, and he says, well, have you read the Sinner's Prayer? I said, the Sinner's Prayer? I don't know. What is the Sinner's Prayer? I have no idea what this is. Well, you say it and you're saved. Like, is that easy? Because I'm in. I'm all in now. I'm in. God's real. I want this, right? So, like, how do I get it? Like, what do I do? I had no idea. And that's why I hold my church in such a high standard, because it's helping me, it's teaching me, and then my friends there are helping and teaching, and it's really guiding something that I really don't know a lot about because I've resented so much.
Did anything happen when you said the Sinner's Prayer?
So at that particular moment, no. So that particular moment, I didn't realize it was a big deal. I didn't realize it was really anything. I just kind of read it, and just kind of reading it verbatim, just, hey, I didn't feel it, I guess you could say. But I would say about a day and a half, 2 days later, I'm still vibing off my little spiritual trip. I'm in church now. I'm getting the gospel. I'm getting the word. I'm getting these friends, and I've said the Sinner's Prayer, and I'm feeling like I have the pieces. And then I said, I'm done wondering, if this is happening right now. So I said, I was in my bedroom, closed the door, dropped to the foot of my bed, because how I heard that's how you do it. And I went to the foot of my bed on my knees. I asked Jesus to come into my life, fill my heart. I welcomed. I want you. I welcome. Please come. Please come. Please come. And again, the emotions. The big tough guy just can't keep it together. Every time I think of God and these experiences, I just get emotional, because it's just such an overbearing, overpowering feeling, knowing that this is not an accident. This is not an accident. I don't care what anyone says. This is not an accident.
Let me ask, that night, do you believe it was then that Jesus changed your life? Everything about John?
Yeah. I mean, really, it does, because once you realize and accept and believe, I mean, it's tough to go back. And now, we're really just so purpose-filled. I still have a hard time sometimes describing it, because it is such I don't want to use the word overbearing, but I mean, it's such a profound thing. And I'm very new to my faith. So it's, sometimes it is tough to kind of find the right words, because, it's like a young kid getting the best present of his life. I mean, there's no words.
You know today that Jesus is real and that he changed your life.
100%. From that kid to this, that to me is a pretty profound, that brings up all the emotion. From being this kid that was just broken, depressed, and scared, anxious, upset, everything, all these negative emotions, what the enemy wants you to feel all the time, to one of the happiest people in general, one of the happiest people, one of the most luckiest guys. Like I won the lottery.
John, I've got one final question for you. If someone is listening to you tell your story, and to them, they believe that life just isn't fair, what would you tell them?
I would say to that person that you need help, and it's okay to need help. I needed help. Billions of people need help. There is a source of help. There really is a real, true source of help. You need to seek that help in God. And by doing that, I mean, you'll have all the help, the guidance, the motivation, everything you would ever need to get through whatever the circumstances are that you are currently dealing with. You need to have your eyes and ears open, and your soul, right? It needs to be open so that you can get the right answers from within.
If you've been listening to John tell his story and it's moved your heart, and you would like someone to pray with, or you would like to know what it means to be born again, please call our 24/7 prayer line at 1-866-273-4444. If you want to learn more about the gospel of Jesus Christ and how it can transform your life, you can request a free Bible by calling toll-free 1-888-482-4253. You can begin your journey with Christ now.